Yeah, oh, what a feeling. I like the O. So I'm the obligatory novelist at your web design event. As it happens, I happen to have written a novel recently, which is mostly set at events just like Webstock. And it's a romance novel, because writing science fiction about Webstock would be way too easy. And you guys would understand all the jokes in this novel. Kind of exciting prospect. So yeah, I'm a novelist. I'm from Team Blob. Team really, really long text blob. So I'm like keen on things like cultural sensibility, and I think these times have one. Oh, what a feeling. Okay, so what is the feeling? That's the name of the speech. And the feeling is dark euphoria. Dark euphoria. Maybe you did not know the actual name of that weird, kind of nameless, uncertain feeling that's been gnawing you at 2 in the morning for about 4 years now. But that's it. That's the name, dark euphoria. Dark euphoria is the general cultural sensibility of the decade of the 20-teens. We're living in a depression. We just have one. It's rather sad, everyday reality of the 20-teens. We have a right to our disturbed WTF-style emotional responses. There's also a spectacular, euphoric tech transition going on, probably a really cool thing to live through if we weren't also all victimized by ultra-rich guys while the climate comes apart. But that's what's actually going on. And under dark euphoria, tech fixes are slapped onto decaying institutions. That's how we live. Very, very typical, prototypical of this historical period. Everybody does it, me included, Team Blob, we're just as keen on this. Dark euphoria, it's euphoric, it's awesome to watch, great to participate in, very exciting. Everything gets disruptively disintermediated. It's thrilling, but you're not really allowed to do much about it directly and in any sober, focused, sincere, immediate, practical way, mostly because people lie so much about our large and serious problems. And the things we've attempted to do to get ourselves out of this situation don't work. The austerity is worse than the panic. It makes the economy worse, not any better. There is no recovery. People lie more vigorously about the climate crisis as the flames rise up all around us. The dark euphoria is part of our general atmosphere of deceit and pretense. That's how we live. It's like we're all forced to pretend that mom isn't drunk. And, you can say mom will stop drinking tomorrow. That's a cheery idea. Probably she won't, actually, because mom didn't start that overnight. You just say things to mom like, hey, look, this fundraising app is almost like an actual political party. And mom just heads straight for the cupboard. Code is law, Mom. It's true. It's practically actually true. Code is law. Mom starts hitting the bottle. Mom, I'm going to fix this depression. I will also restore the climate from right here at my desktop. No, you're not really going to do that. The planet's atmosphere is not a hacktivist, clickable problem. You can't fix it by next weekend. You can't upgrade it. So we're in an era of frenetic global networking in a culture drifting sideways, sliding on the black ice into a cultural and political twilight. That's why the room's full of dark euphoria. I mean, not while you're here and happy, when you're like waking up at 4 in the morning, you're going to remember what I said. Everybody feels the dark euphoria. Some repress the feeling, but it's a lot healthier and more honest to own up to it. I mean, it is a depression. There are real problems. Let's try to be honest. You can grasp what's really going on a lot more effectively that way. You can actually watch the austerity just rip up national governments everywhere and destroy the safe bourgeois world of middle-class consumerism, the 20th century. Just in amazing Gothic decay. It's just blown to pieces. And this era is not the dot-com boom era of the 1990s. It's very different. We have genuine disruption instead of mostly imaginary disruption. We have post-disruption. Now, the original web of the 1980s was a pretty good deal for New Zealand because it was something like a new and exciting and leveled global playing field. All you needed was a web address and, a desktop machine, and you were no longer remote out in the South Pacific. It's like, wow, I'm just kind of like immediately there. However, the current situation is not at all fair, really, because the major contemporary social media version of the web is dominated by major players from the USA. Amazon, Facebook, Apple, Microsoft, Google, the 5 majors. So your original Webstock was kind of your rock and roll party, but frankly, this is more like your web disco period. Now, the last time I was here at Webstock, I was talking about Web 2.0, or rather, I was describing the language of the web at that time, because I'm a novelist, I'm a very language-centric guy, and I was making fun of Tim O'Reilly for using terms like the cloud as platform. And it's a mixed metaphor, cloud as platform. And let me be fair, it means something important. It actually describes something that's very real, but it truly sounds insane in normal English. Cloud as platform. How can a cloud possibly be a platform? And it will sound just as insane again someday. It's kind of a temporarily useful concept. And yours is truly a weird industry. And your language contributes to the general sense of unreality. A guy was standing here, he said, I can get the cloud as platform for $24 a year. A dark, euphoric moment, and it was true. You can get the cloud as platform for $24 a year. It's kind of an awesome thing to hear. Now, I've had a lot more time to listen to Tim O'Reilly since then. I follow him on Twitter. Tim does not have to be right about everything all the time in order to be of great value to me. I've come to appreciate the consistency of Tim's thought. I kind of get it about where he's coming from. I even kind of admire the shroud of odd buzzwords that Tim is constantly inventing. Web 2.0 was a great idea. It has been slowly dwindling away since 2008. Sort of the official beginning of the period of dark euphoria. It's been dwindling away since 2008, and it's been dwindling in quite a graceful way. Nobody ever said, oh, it was wrong, Tim lied about it. You can just go onto Google Trends and you can watch usage of the term gently fade into the twilight. The idea of Web 2.0, the language of Web 2.0, had an implicit expiration date because it was 2.0. And I really admire that very much. I wish I could talk about technology in that way. It's important to formally recognize somehow that the web changes radically and quickly, and that we have a Depression-era web now. Web 2.0 is gone. It's gone like Web 1.0 and its static web pages without the APIs. They're gone. And gone like the ARPANET is gone. And the Internet Information Superhighway are gone. They're gone, and the rules and concepts under which they flourished do not apply to what's going on now. Now, Tim O'Reilly's a publisher, so Tim naturally talks mostly about stuff that gets built with Tim O'Reilly books by Tim's clan of alpha geeks. And that's what gets Tim's professional attention most of the time. And the internet was built with O'Reilly books. And he claims that, and it's true, and it's a great contribution. But Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, Facebook, and Google were not built with Tim O'Reilly books. And yet we still call them the web or the internet, mostly out of habit. They're not that, they're stacks. It's a misleading habit. They do not have the values of the internet or the Web 2.0 values, and they never did. They have contemporary 20-teens stack values. And Tim's idea of a contributor is like some yeoman farmer software crafts guy who could pick up an O'Reilly book, on impulse even, and build himself a brand new, fully independent website where he controls the means of production and it uses the same TCP/IP as all the other websites in the world. And compared to the stacks, this guy, this archaic guy, he's like the lonesome visionary cyberspace cowboy of the electronic frontier after the railways have arrived and the barbed wire fences have gone up. He's a romantic figure of the past. It's not about today, it's about the big cloud, big pipes, really, really big databases. The stacks have built private infrastructures, private castles of cyberspace, real-world functional installations, genuine digital hardware that simply did not exist in the past. It's a fait accompli. The old web, its idea of as a fair platform, vast, endless, featureless, somewhat metaphysical, glorious. It's more like a scientific concept than what we have now, cluster of pipes in the ground leading to big, big data vaults. The noosphere cyberspace of the 1990s, metaphysical ideas deployed in a platonic, everywhere, nowhere, techno-social space where everything is equally doable, everything neatly and crisply connects immediately to the web, to everything else. Like an R&D lab table fully controlled for any spurious outside effects. Naturally, being a science fiction writer, I totally dig that. I'm like with that 105%. But it was just a phase, and it's not what's happening now. That was then, and this is now. It's not that the electronic frontier didn't exist historically, because it did. It's just after 30 years of settlement by billions of people, you don't have a frontier. Instead, you get a whole lot of those spurious outside effects, because that's what life is, basically. Like spurious side effects all the way down. Nobody pretends that Wellington is a frontier town. When you go out on the streets today, that's what it is in 2013. It's there, it's an existence there. So, what's different about these stacks, and why are they different from Web 2.0, and really quite different from any conventional corporation that we ever saw before? Well, there's a number of reasons. I'm going to run through a few of them. First, they're huge. They're full of people, millions and millions of people. They have millions of users feverishly interacting every day. They are not delicate startup web ateliers. They're not academic, military, or scientific. They're corporations, but they're not corporations of the old style like Dell or Sony or Nokia. They're vertically integrated, globalized software structures used by millions. And that's why I like the term stacks. I think it keeps you away from old-fashioned language. Stacks have new things that 20th century companies never had. Typically, a proprietary operating system, which the web never had. Normal corporations never had it. iOS, Windows, Android. And they have some popular post-internet device, something that is not an old-school, standalone, personal desktop computer. They have tablets, phones, phablets, Chromebooks, Kindles, Surfaces, whatever's next. More dependent on wireless than on the classic internet, not wired anything in particular. And hopefully you, as an inhabitant of the stack, you use nothing else but this stack device. You can't jailbreak it, it's not legal. So you're not equal, like some node on the internet. You're a client working inside a proprietary device. The internet had users. Stacks have livestock. They have livestock. Nobody on the internet knows you're a dog. You're livestock, but you can't prove it. The stacks know all about you. They are monetizing you. You are their product. They also have some dedicated way to sell cultural material, music, movies, books, apps, or if you're Amazon, everything, just everything. They have tools for productivity that make you more dependent on them for earning a living. They supply you with way to work. They have an advertising business which requires knowing a whole lot about you. A whole lot about you. And getting ways to get you to click for free, to tempt you into interaction. And they profit from that in various ingenious ways that they do not tell you about. They have a search engine that agglomerates your clicks and your links. You use that. They keep the database themselves. They have a dedicated social network where, once again, you do all the work of socializing while they own the platform and the software. And they have a payment solution of some kind, so you can become part of a toy stack economy, like a kind of Pokemon economy. And commonly they have a cloud, it's just a barn full of computers, big computers with 1 million pipes coming out, really big pipes and hardware, deliberately sited at advantageous areas on the world's real physical internet, the actual existent machine. They will always try to tip network neutrality into their own favor. And the stacks have been growing for a long time. They're not new. You're not going to build a new one tomorrow. You're not going to build your own Web 2.0, back of the book version of Facebook, Microsoft, or Apple. They're too big. They're just not conventional corporations because they don't compete in any marketplace head to head. They've learned a new way. They disrupt the old order and they try to disrupt each other. They want to give away the other stack's way of earning a living while monetizing something they're best at doing. If it's Amazon, it's all about warehouses, logistics, shipping, and consumer records. If it's Facebook, it's all about personal relationships and demographic leanings, likes. If it's Google, it's all the world's knowledge put on your face in real time and used to sell you ads. If it's Apple, it's a seamless ivory tower of content washed in unicorn tears. And so well controlled that they won't even feature topless models, even though they all used to eat LSD like popcorn. And if it's Microsoft, they just own business and government. They just own everything. They own all the desks as a monopoly of the authorities' hardware. Those are the stacks. They're the existent reality. Now, Web 2.0, pretty kind to the innate creative strengths of New Zealand. These huge American enterprises are not your pals. They're not your pals. These are not the 1990s. These are the 20-teens. Google worries about getting spearfished by the Chinese advanced persistent threat. The USA has become a rather scary place after 20 years of a global war on terror and an American civil Cold War going on since the 1960s. The internet is full of crime now. It's not a peaceful place full of academics and nice guys. The internet has become criminal and hostile, and the stacks can promise some safety from that global slum environment. They're the logical extension of embrace and extend policies started 20 years ago. The appearance of the stacks is involuntary and emergent. Nobody ever voted for them. It all happened pretty much like climate change happened. It happened in the way that the global finance crisis happened. Nobody particularly wanted it to happen. It's somewhat spurious. The historical forces caused it. It's a grand spectacle. It should inspire dark euphoria in people. The internet broke a whole lot of business models. Now the internet's model has also been broken. Nobody ever voted for the internet either. The internet was a lucky historical accident in many ways. It's not sacred. It's not metaphysical. It's not a noosphere. Even if you really like the values of its early evangelists, there are benefits to the stacks. Lots. Normal people really like the stacks. They dig that pizza. They like being waited upon. The stacks have not gone to patent war with one another, even though they're rivals. They hate each other's guts more and more. You can see it every day, but they haven't really gone to the mattresses. Cops really like the stacks. Once police get the hang of this kind of social networking, they truly dig it. It makes their business a lot easier. If you like Pax Americana, the stacks are kind of on the side of that. Crime rates are really low in the US now, because despite the general misery. It's because they're all in the slammer. It's easy to round them up. They're all on Facebook. There are lots of free services in the stack, fast, efficient services. Everybody is reduced to beggary. All stack livestock are becoming like musicians. Musicians lead the way. Whatever happens to musicians will eventually happen to everybody, especially in a stack. You belong to a stack, but you don't prosper there. They don't give you anything. They don't pay you. You're not an employee. They don't give you any insurance. There's no promise of anything, really, from a stack. It's just click wrap, legally and politically and economically. It's click wrap all the way through. They're not super evil business moguls. They're not as evil as the fossil fuel business or the American sickness industry or the military industrial weapons contractors who are the other major American industries. They're much nicer guys than those older school guys, but the stacks are profoundly unstable. They're built by upstart weirdos who have become super rich moguls. Now, the stacks mean a lot to web developers, but they don't really mean very much compared to climate change or the global finance crisis. They're not that important. People know that the stacks are a put-up job. Nobody believes in them, really. They will not last. They're a transition to nowhere. They have no direction to progress and nothing left to conserve. And anyway, new devices are coming very quickly. And even Facebook, which is the youngest and weirdest stack, looks really confused a lot of the time. Dark Euphoria is an extremely Facebook millionaire way to feel. Like Zuckerberg, are we rich? We're not. Oh wait, we are. Oh no, we're not. Oh wait, yes, okay. The stacks are not the villains of their own story. Some stacks are quite old. Gates is retired. He's a nice rich old man who hangs out with rock stars and cures malaria. Jobs is dead. He's become a secular saint. The stacks do not dominate. They don't have the analog staying power of General Electric or General Motors. Even computer hardware guys are in big trouble now. Look what happened to Nokia. Look what happened to Dell. Look at the Japanese, all these full employment electronic megacorporations of the 1980s. It's a very unstable arrangement. It's a post-revolutionary transition economy where the institutions which might seize control of the situation are just sort of made up. There's no there. It's quite like flying into New Zealand and having everybody tell you that you're really in Middle Earth. Like, we're really in Middle Earth? Wow, look at the side of that skyscraper. It's got a hobbit on it 40 stories high. So, what comes after the stacks? Because they contain the seeds of their own destruction. They will not outlive Web 2.0 or the information superhighway or the other ARPANET, the other similar structures. Okay, this is the part where I start getting weird. Because the rest of that is all factual, and you know it as well as I do. But, what comes next? Well, it's a lot of big data comes next. Data as infrastructure, smart cities, smart government, smart elections, a lot of those. Buying the TV isn't enough for political power anymore. Predictive data analytics. Do it together, maker-style stuff. Anything the stacks aren't dabbling with yet, web squared, sensors, UbiComp, augmentation. Tim O'Reilly, very keen on all this stuff. That's why I follow Tim. Prospects in ubiquitous computing, augmentation over the next couple of decades. How do I make this virtual instead of boring and analog and brick and mortar? Okay, that's your uncle's problem. It's not a contemporary problem. The contemporary problem is like, what can I measure? What can I meter? What can I attach software to? How can I build a big database about it? How can I instrument this space? How can I instrument this situation? How can I add visual controls or symbols to it? And how do I scale that? Smart cities, lean and agile government, internet factories, an Internet of Things, the IBM Smart World, the General Electric Internet Factory, Intel Perceptual Computing, gesture recognition, Arduino, Raspberry Pi, a little bit of home robotics and manufacturing. Now, it's easy to get all 1980s and hand-wavy about a prospect like that and start talking in glorious sci-fi abstractions like the cloud is platform and it's a cyberspace noosphere and so forth. I love that stuff, very used to it. Major offender in that regard, to tell you the truth. I'm trying to get past it. I know it no longer applies. It's just not modern circumstances. So instead of like factories, cities, smart nations, wacky smart planets, let's just imagine we have something very immediate and obvious, a cat. Fluffy. Fluffy the cat. Fluffy the lol cat. Fluffy the lol cat of the Internet of Things. He's the hero of the speculation here. He's the diegetic prototype design fiction cat. Fluffy's a cat. He's not a user. He's not a developer. He's livestock. He's feline. But he is a participant in the augmented, pervasive, smart city, urbanized, instrumented, sensor-driven, web-squared Internet of Things. He doesn't get a choice about it. He's just plain there. In fact, he's a more pure participant than we humans are because there's no laws, ethics, cats don't vote, nobody's lying to him, cats have no religion, cats don't design anything. They're just living beings in the world. People on the internet really dig cats, bazillions of them. Fluffy is like the lol cat of things. He's the atomic unit of internet participation. That's the lol cat, cute cat theory. Cats are sure to be around in the next decade. We have millions of them. We love them. We've loved them for 8,000 years. Cats are members of the family. When they die, we cry a lot. We bury Fluffy. We acknowledge him as one of our own. So, how's Fluffy supposed to get by? I mean, how does he live within this future Internet of Things, smart city-fied, emergent big data space? What's in it for him? Well, Fluffy's not any smarter. He's not any smarter tomorrow, and neither are you. You don't want to get smarter about Fluffy. You don't want to be burdened with the cognitive loading and the opportunity cost. You don't want to geek out and become an in-depth, fanatical, veterinarian cat expert. That's not going to happen. You don't have the time, means, motive, or opportunity. Ideally, what you want is just to get ahead of the cat game there. I mean, keep Fluffy happy and away from the veterinarian. Simple, logical, immediate, common sense computing steps. There are downsides to Fluffy's behavior. He's a cat. He rips the living hell out of the living room furniture. Quite expensive. He defecates in areas he shouldn't. He sprays in areas where he shouldn't spray. He vomits up hairballs. He howls in the middle of the night. He fights the neighbor cats. Everybody's familiar with this unfortunate behavior. So you want a hairballometer. You want a cat and heat gauge. Maybe a cat mood indicator. 99 cents? Why not? It's not the HAL 9000 for cats. These are not the 1960s. We're not talking artificial intelligence here. You want a stats board for Fluffy. You want a pop-up indicator, a dashboard on a mobile device. Maybe an augmentation. You might want to project the data right onto the cat if you're... It doesn't matter what platform you pick. What you want is the observant power relationship to your cat that Google and Facebook already have to you. You are Fluffy Zuckerberg. You are Fluffy Sergey and Larry. Big data for your cat. That means, like with the stacks, it's mostly about painlessly, yet very minutely, monitoring the cat's behavior. The way the cat behaves within your instrumented space. For instance, you might compare silhouettes of Fluffy to millions of silhouettes of other Fluffies. Visual recognition algorithms, not intelligence, just Google-style image recognition, just to see what he's doing. And since you can do that, why not train him a little? He's in the space, it's an instrumented box. Starts howling, misses the cat box, Roomba hits him with a water pistol. Quadricopter, little one, comes off the top of the refrigerator, hits him with a light, cease and desist noise. Urban police copter, drone style, but small, everything's scaled down. It won't be perfect control of the cat. There are sure to be some false positives. Every once in a while you beat him up in an unjust way. But the good part is he'll never know. If you hit him with your hand, he might scratch you back, but he can't scratch you for slapping him. You're not slapping him. He's always on the receiving end, just like you are with Microsoft. So what happens if we really dig down a bit? Well, there's DNA, of course. We can sequence the cat. We can breed cats with specific DNA heritage. Cat breeding, big deal. Where are you going to get him? You want to inquire into his heritage, it shouldn't be that big a difference. You just do it big data style. Not with artificial intelligence. You do it statistically by observing over a long period and building up a big data stack. Instrumented cat, health monitor style. Cat's got a port in his neck. Every week the collar takes tissue samples. He's got the kitty Fitbit. Why not? The data is mined and shared through the cloud. It doesn't cost much. These are the 2020s, the 2030s. It's all been made cheap and made more available. You could say, oh, well, it's very expensive to watch cats all the time. It's not that expensive. I mean, if you're the cat of a Qatari billionaire, you could do it all right now. Billionaires are getting a lot commoner. You only have to invent the platform once, then you can distribute it. It's much better to ask, how long would it be expensive? If you've already got your space instrumented for cats, there's lots of other possible benefits to that. For instance, your space is automatically instrumented for rats. Now you can see if they're showing up, if Fluffy's eating them. It could be pretty handy. Rats, very dangerous. And now, given that you have this new capacity, you can have 10 cats. 10 for the price of one. They chew up all the leftover food with your 3D cat printer. The cat box never smells. It's always used accurately, emptied automatically. You can leave the cats as long as you like. System will look after them. You can call them up on video Skype. You've reduced your vet bills, all with the 99-cent cat apps. Every day, a complete video of all the cute cat things that Fluffy did that day will be dropped into your inbox. You'll never miss a cute thing he does again, because they're all statistically compared to other cute cat videos, which exist in millions. It's not hard to figure out when a cat's being cute. It's just the same as Google Translate or statistical translation database. Just look through the entire phase space of cuteness and have the machine pull that out and send it to you. And why should our new big data observation processes stop there? Why stop? I mean, cat veterinarians are like superpower real cat experts. Why can't we monetize what they know? DNA, cells, growth, organs. Why not the skeleton, muscle, tendons, and fur beneath Fluffy's skin? Let's just go right into him. Now, I don't have any illusions that a cat is a factory or a city, but this is what we're promising ourselves. We're flattering ourselves that we can make these many opaque, complex processes visible through big data. You see us brag about this every day. We just put some kind of graphic front end on them, find out where the tipping points are and nudge them. So why not do the same thing to a cat? Just a cat's skeleton. It's a living thing that grows in responses to the stresses from the muscles and tendons. It's not magic, it's physics, it's biology. If you can run a city, why can't you run a cat? Guys in the web business are always whining on about becoming post-human. They really dig this. Becoming post-feline, 1,000 times easier. 1,000 times easier. Felines, very interesting animals. They can get lots bigger than house cats. Lots bigger. And maybe lots smaller too, like a dwarfed, pygmy, skinless cat. They have to have some minimum size, but where's the slider bar there? Imagine how interesting it would be to find that out and how many people would follow you if you were really engaged in that. Has your kitten achieved 100% of his growth potential? Of course, we would all want that. That's only fair. You don't want to stunt him. So why not 105%? Cats have lots of unexplored performance potential. There were cats back in the Pleistocene, much bigger than the biggest surviving lions or tigers today. Bear-sized cats, enormous skeletons, teeth big enough to stab mastodons to death. They're not imaginary, they were real. The DNA is all out in the tar pits. It's probably not all that hard for a hardcore cat fancier to get his hands on some Pleistocene saber-tooth DNA. How hard could that really be? And it would juice Fluffy up considerably. If you're into big DNA data analysis, you don't actually have to do anything genetic to the cat. You just observe the way the genetics behave. Bones aren't made of DNA, they're made of processes set in motion by DNA. So what you really want is a kind of dashboard for the triggers, monitors of the vital processes going on within the cat. It might be kind of illegal to do weird stuff to your instrumented self. But your instrumented cat is another matter. Very do-it-yourself bio. Science labs full of cats already. You wouldn't believe the data in there. Homemade bio toolkit, feline hormones and proteins. Whatever produces the effects you want. We can geek out on this subject all day. We are web developers here. That's how we think. How would you think if you were a future cat developer? A saber-toothed kitten isn't any bigger than a house cat. Just feline growth process with a set limit. We don't need any magic sci-fi cat growth dust. Magic cat fertilizer. We just need the stats, the processes, the threads. What the military would call something like comprehensive battle space awareness. But for a cat, a souped up user profile for a cat. My cat dashboard. Maybe it comes in a gel. Kitten gets a whole lot of these nutrients, the growth factors. Elderly cat, more of the sustenance version. Older bones, stiffer, more calcified. If you grow them too much, overclock the cat, it's going to crack. Now, obviously all kinds of moral objections are coming up here. Because, I made it get very sci-fi and eerie. Like, gee, it's awfully mean to Kitty to subject his bones to terrible interior stresses by overclocking his growth hormones. And we feel an instinctive moral dread about this, but it's mostly rhetorical. It doesn't reflect the way we really act. A lot of people feel an instinctive moral dread about stem cells or embryos. They feel instinctive moral dread about the colossal DNA records accumulating at every police agency in the world. Suppose the police decide to remove everybody who has a certain kind of DNA. Obviously, that's a whole lot easier now than it ever was in the 20th century. So why don't we dread that? Not imaginary like a cat, that's like on the ground. Is it less dangerous to us than house cat technology? If you're going to be applying instinctive moral dread to speculative future technologies, you need to apply the same moral dread to the technologies we already have right now. There's nothing particularly different about them because they're imaginary. We've got non-imaginary dreadful things: handguns, hydrogen bombs, coal mines, child labor factories. Are they worse than fluffy? I'm not saying morality is irrelevant. I'm just saying you can't do special pleading. You can't apply morality to speculative technologies just because they're speculative. Because it's intellectually dishonest. You're getting the cheap thrill of being judgmental in a way that's way too cheap and easy. Try applying morality to the technologies you use right now. Pierce the haze of dark euphoria. Try and take a moral stand. Try to live in truth and the Václav Havel method in the 20-teens. To take a moral stand is praiseworthy. It's exceedingly difficult. You don't really do it, especially when those technologies are owned and deployed by people who are richer than you and more militarily powerful than you and in control of your media. People who are able to shame you and make you look like a kook for your moral reservations. Those are the ones you're actually confronting. It's not pretty and clean. The internet, the web, the stacks, they're not Wellington. They're global. They look much more like Cairo or Jakarta. Slums and shanties and a few decaying castles full of wicked aristocrats. And to say, well, I'll become a moral beacon in this dark euphoria, it's like saying you want to be Václav Havel or Martin Luther King, but you can't say it without the inconvenience of their long jail sentences and decades of actual struggle. Now that's an actual moral assessment of technology. It's the kind that has consequence. Now there's another response of, oh dear, we couldn't possibly do that in the future. Because, it's frightening and disturbing and gives me a dark euphoric feeling. Okay, that's a romantic teenage girl assessment. It's a romantic teenage girl assessment because that social attitude was invented by a romantic teenage girl, Mary Shelley. I'm a science fiction novelist, just like Mary Shelley was. Naturally, I think Mary Shelley is great, but she was a teenage girl, romantic teenage girl whose parents happened to be two revolutionary feminist intellectuals, but she was nevertheless a romantic teenage girl, and she wrote some weird fiction. But she's not in charge of developments in technology, not even feline network technology, because nobody is. Nobody's in charge. If it happens, it's going to be a mix of market drive, geek culture dynamics, and lucky accidents. If you call Fluffy a Franken-cat, it's like calling genetically altered rice Franken-rice. Some people will be pretty upset about it. They've bought into your rhetoric, mostly the people who already listen to you, people who already talk like you. Somebody else is going to call him Golden Cat. Fluffy the Golden Cat. They're going to point out all his various benefits, and that's not a fair debate. You don't get to relinquish Fluffy. There is no relinquishment debate. You can win the debate, but you have no actual method in real life in which to enforce the relinquishment. There's no off button. We don't have anything between the Fluffy of today and my weirdo saber-toothed Fluffy of tomorrow that I was just describing. Everything in there is doable, it's plausible. And the whole point of economic globalization and neoliberal trade policy was to methodically strip out any such breaks. We tore them all up on purpose. It happened during the Washington Consensus 20 years ago. And so imaginary institutions could do something about morals-based tech policy recommendations. They don't exist. They're already a generation gone. They're just gone. And what is left is institutions like the President's Council on Bioethics, which is mostly dominated by the Christian right, who are kind of interested in ethics and pretty knowledgeable about biology, but they're mostly interested in being Christian and of the right. So I've just maneuvered you into a situation where you feel, gosh, I feel pretty weird about Fluffy. That was kind of a dark, euphoric moment there. Because I used Fluffy, I deployed him as a design fiction parable. But we're really living in an era of long-term institutional decay, accompanied by tech fixes. That's really how we do things nowadays. That's why I can make this parable of a lolcat sound so plausible. In fact, if I really work my way up about it, I can get past plausible. I can ramp up to inevitable. I could probably write a business model for Fluffy now. The ubiquitous augmented cat, sensors, monitors, genetic, cellular, organ level, musculoskeletal, urinary, cerebro-neural. Okay, he sounds a bit baroque and elaborate, but your mobile smartphone is that elaborate. It's got 1 million apps in it. It lives in your pocket and your purse. It's the first thing you look at in the morning. It's the last thing you touch at night. It's more intimate than your cat. It's lots more intimate. And not only did everybody build and buy these very complicated devices, they're buying upgrades for them over and over again. They're changing much faster than computers did. Fastest trillion-dollar industry in world history. We've got millions of lolcats flying around the internet. Billions. It's an existent fact. And suppose we decided, or we found out that we'd made a terrible mistake, and the mistake was lolcats. You know, we thought lolcats were just harmless, amusing, funny jokes, but in reality, they're information viruses, or like dreadful Borosian things. They're cultural poison. They're like building up in our body, like fat and carbon monoxide. And people lose their jobs because of them. Economics all over the world go into a steep decline, can't get back up, can't recover. Newspapers are closed, libraries are closed. Fourth estate in collapse. Television gets steadily stupider. It's full of deliberate feel-good lies. Popular music gets stupider. It's not about anything. All the musicians have gone broke. They have to tour to survive. Digital crime and cyber war have multiplied in all directions. A general depression is set in. People are refusing to have children. Young people can't get married and start a home. People are abducted and tortured. Robot airplanes carry out assassinations worldwide without due process. The best movies in Hollywood come out of New Zealand. It's kind of a disturbing world. And it turns out, however, that the real problem was always lolcats. It's this giant distraction that has warped our civilization beyond recognition. And the only way for us to survive is to rigorously put all lolcats aside. They just have to be exterminated so we can return to the status quo ante of a settled analog civilization long before the internet was invented. There is no Webstock. Bruce Sterling writes novels with a manual typewriter, never answers his email, never dreams of showing up at Webstock, would not listen to your presentations, and so on. If we realized that was true, if we were really convinced of it, could we do anything about it? Could we take a deep breath and put aside our dark, euphoric, present-day world through an act of will? No. No, we couldn't do it. And we can't do it because we belong here. And that's why our proper feeling, and oh, what a feeling it is, really is dark euphoria. We can't go back. We will have to work our way through this. We will have to come out of the other side of this historical period into a world so weird it's scarcely describable. We don't have the words for the mid-20th century. The Anthropocene, the ensuing collapse of the human bubble, the gerontocracy, the baby famine. But most of the people in this room are going to live to see that world, the 2060s. They're as close to us as the 2020s, as the 1960s. An awesome vista. No words for it. Truly indescribable. Although I plan to work pretty hard to describe it because, well, I kind of do that. So thank you for your attention.